want to talk about post-game. Everything that happens when the buzzer sounds and the game is over. The post-game talk for the coach, post-game talk for the parent and the kid. And I want to talk about the infamous car ride home. Okay, so let's talk about it. And let's be honest. Okay, we have way too many kids in this country quitting sports because of their parents, and they're quitting younger and younger. Let's just be really honest about that. It isn't screen time. It isn't other things. A lot of times kids are quitting at especially a young age because of the parents. Off the field, the mom and dad seem normal. They're pretty cool at home. But when it's game time, the parents transform into these crazy people, yelling from the stands and all the crazy things that they do. There was a study a few years ago that asked hundreds of college coaches, not college coaches, hundreds of college athletes to think about their worst memory from playing youth sports and from high school sports. The number one response was the car ride home from my parents. Number one worst memory of sports. And I can tell you, I personally have learned so much from proactive coaching. Probably my biggest mentor in my coaching career is a guy named Bruce Brown with proactive coaching. A lot of the stuff that I'm going to talk about today, I learned from him. I learned from proactive coaching. They are an incredible organization. Make sure you check them out. But I remember a story that Bruce told me once about a college athlete he met. He was asking about her journey and how she got into lacrosse. And she said, well, I was a softball player until I was about 15 years old, and I couldn't handle my dad anymore, so I turned to lacrosse. And he said, well, why did you pick lacrosse? She said, because my dad doesn't know anything about lacrosse. And I was just like, holy cow. What an incredible story. This girl hated probably the car rides and her dad coaching her so much and the way he treated her and talked about her that she went to another sport and went to play in college because she knew her dad didn't know a lot about lacrosse. And that was her kind of escape from her dad. So understand whether your child is just beginning t-ball. Some of you have really young kids and they're just starting their journey and you're a first-time parent. Or you're a parent who's a lot of kids that are older, travel ball, even college. I want to give you some tips for post-game for parents and coaches. Okay, first, let's start with the do nots. Because here's where a lot of parents go wrong. Number one, they overemphasize the sport at the expense of sportsmanship, okay? We as a coach, we ask our athletes to give 100% effort, 100% good attitude, and 100%, we ask them for good body language. But for many parents, we need to hold them to the same standards. We ask our kids to do these things. We want them college coaches to see their attitude, effort, their hustle, their good body language. But we don't see this from the parents to stand. We got to hold them to the same standard. And parents, during the game, encouragement is crucial, especially when things aren't going well in the field. An error is made, a mistake, they miss a layup, they miss a shot. Instead of yelling, "You got to have that! Come on!" Encouragement is what we need, and coaches know that too. Get it next time. Hey, you're good. You get it next time. Keep working on your effort. Things like that. Encouragement is needed in those times, not bad body language, bad attitude. These things we ask our kids to do, and then do not have different goals than your child. Okay? To me, that's one of the biggest problems that happens around high school, 13, 14, 15 years old. The parent is all about the D1 scholarship or whatever the goal is, and the kid just wants to play the sport. For most kids, they play sports because it's fun. We play because it's a fun sport to do. It's something we enjoy doing with our friends. We like the competition. Most kids don't sign up for travel ball because they're like, oh, I got to get a D1 scholarship. Okay, I'm trying to do that. Most kids are playing because they want to have fun. So parents, if your goals are much different than your kids, that's a big red flag. It's a big issue. Parents usually have vastly different goals. And as we talked about last week, parents and kids need to get on the same page. And in most cases, what I mean by that is parents need to get on the same page as their child and what their child's goals and wants are. So. And then I would tell you, to me, one of the most heartbreaking things that I've seen across the country, talking to parents and going around the country speaking, is that Number one do not for me is treating your child differently after a loss or a win, or treating them differently after a good performance or a bad performance. I ask parents all the time about, loving their child. They say, my kid knows that I love them no matter what. And they say that. But almost all parents love their children the same regardless. And I do believe that. But if you ask the kids, their parents' behavior says something different. Okay. Many kids I've talked to have said that their parents' conversations after the game, the post-game talk, the car ride home, that they feel like their identity and their worth as their child is dependent on their performance. The kids are telling me this, not the parents, and there's some disconnect there. So parents, understand and communicate this. Communicate this to your kid. I love you no matter how well you play, whether you score 20 points or 0 points, whether you hit a home run or you strike out 4 times. I love you no matter what. And even if you think you do that, over communicate that, because a lot of kids tell me, I feel like my parents love me more when I do well and treat me poorly when I don't do well. And that's a big, big issue to me. The next do not for parents. The next do not. Undermining the coach. Undermining the coach. Okay, young athletes, especially high school, is a lot. They need a single instructional voice during the game. Okay, T-ball I know is different. We're shouting things from the stands to get our kids to pay attention. But as they get older, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 years old, stop coaching them from the stands. They need a single voice instructing them. That voice has to be their coach. Kids who listen to their parents or always look to their parents in the stands, yelling instructions or glancing for approval, they're not going to ever reach their potential. Your kids will never reach their potential if they're listening to different voices. They're listening to you in the stands. Stay away from it. Stay encouraging. Cheer for the team. Do not shout instructions from the stand beyond maybe 5, 6 years old, okay? Do not do it. And then I would tell you guys, a simple question from the ride home. A lot of times what happens is parents think they're being encouraging on the way home, and they get in the car and they're trying to encourage them and they say the wrong things. They say like, why does Jessica always get to play catcher? Or, why does your coach always play zone defense? And they think they're trying to be supportive of you because you didn't, play. But what you're doing is you're undermining the coach, and you're undermining the coach's authority. And the kid is starting to think, well, my parent thinks that, so the coach is not right. I'm not going to respect what the coach says. And it makes it really confusing for the kids. It makes it frustrating, and so undermining the coach is a huge, huge issue we see. It happens all the time around the country, and it's a really, really big issue. So stay away from undermining the coach. Another one we see, if I was to ask parents out there what they think about other parents, the number one answer I get is living your dreams through your child. Okay, this is something that has happened. I don't know if it's been something that's always happened or just something in the last 10 to 20 years, but I hear it all the time. Parents talking about their kid as if they're talking through themselves, like they're taking credit for what their child did. We worked so hard on his hitting this week. We did this. We practiced his goal shots all week in the garage. And it's like, or they say things like, you did it just like I taught you. Or he says things like that. You know what? He's pitching just like I taught him how. And it's like, whoa, you're making this about you. You're living through your child. Like I said, to me, you got to stop doing that. Okay. Watch your language and how you talk to other parents. Do you notice whether you're taking credit for your kids or you're giving them credit? Shine the light on them. Do not shine it on you. And so notice that in the next, this summer or next year, when you're talking to other parents or other coaches about your kid, are you taking the credit for what they do? Are you reflecting it onto you, or are you giving the credit onto them? And a lot of times what happens, I see a lot of it, is that the outcome of the game, whether they win or lose, it means more to the parent than the kid. And that's okay. Parents, that's okay. If you as a parent are depressed or sad or emotional after a loss, when your children, your kids playing the game, they're having fun, they're giving good effort, remind yourself that as a parent, you have no control over the outcome of the game. Okay? It's not about you, it's about them. Even in a loss, did they have fun? Did they learn something? And that's it. I see parents all over the country getting emotional after games, like personally and physically emotional and angry. And their emotions are all high. And the kid is like, oh man, I had fun with my friends. And it's not that they don't care. It's just that if the parents sometimes just care so much more than the kid. To me, that's a huge, huge issue. Emotions are really high, disappointment, frustration. A lot of times the kids are exhausted from the game. They're exhausted from their parents in the stands. So, do not do those things. Do not do those things. So let's talk about that. So I kind of gave you guys a picture of like what I would call the nightmare parents. Nightmare parents. You hear the stories. You might recognize yourself in some of those stories and some of the things that you do. Hopefully if you are, those are some of the things that you recognize that you do, maybe it's a little accountability piece for you. But I want to give you some some tips. You might not be you don't want to be a nightmare parent, I don't think. So let me give you some post-game tips, okay? Number one, during the game, cheer for everybody on the team, not just your child, okay? Parents should, you want to attend as many games as possible and be supportive. Don't feel the need to come to the rescue and only cheer for your kid. Continue to make positive comments, even when the team's struggling. Bruce Brown, one of the things he taught me is this, and I started noticing it as I went to games of my kids. I watched the other parents in the stands, and I noticed that some parents, they only cheer for their kid and nobody else. And as I'm watching, I'm just like, man, this is a team sport. All the parents are together. We want our kids to succeed. Why don't we cheer for everybody? Let's cheer for all the kids. Let's learn the kids' names on your team and cheer for them. Not coach them or criticize them, but let's encourage everybody on the team. And to me, those are the best parents that I see in the stands, are the ones who are encouraging and cheering for all the kids on the team, not just their kid. And I've never thought about it before. And like I said, when I go to games now, I watch parents do this. And then parents, we talked about attitude, effort, body language. Model these behaviors. Okay, model these behaviors for kids. If the kids see that you are doing those things in the stands, showing good body language, good attitude, good effort, and modeling good behavior, it's way easier for them to follow that. And when a parent doesn't do this, to me as a kid, it just shows me, well, if my mom and dad are going to act that way, it should be okay for me to act that way too. And obviously when it comes to post game, know what's suitable to discuss with the coach after the game. We talked about this in a playing time talk and how to talk to your coach, making sure that you're not talking about playing time or strategy, discussing other kids on the team. And then I would just say, post game wise, when your kid is ready to talk to you, listen. Be a great listener. And stop talking. Parents talk at our kids post game. We don't listen. Instead, start listening to your kids. Be an encourager, but listen to what they're saying after the game. Be your child's biggest fan. Okay, be your child's biggest fan. Good athletes, I think to me, they're allowed to talk. They're allowed to have that forum, and their kids really listen to them. Give them time and space to digest the game. Okay. One of the biggest things that I would talk about, we talked about the 24-hour rule. To me, it's one of the things that give them time, give them space to digest the game, and come down physically, emotionally, mentally. Let them come down first. And if you do that, the conversation is way more likely to be a better conversation after the game, hours after the game. Like I said, the 24-hour rule is great, but if you do it within minutes of the game, emotions are high for both the parent sometime and the kid. That's never a good time to have a constructive conversation. So stop doing that, okay? I would say one of the only rules to this. So I want to make an exception. This is something I learned from Bruce Brown. He made a really good point. The exception to this rule is when your child engages in behavior that you would not accept at home. Like you're at the game, your kid totally acts out. He's cussing out the other players. He's done something. He's assaulted another player. He's disrespecting the coach or disrespecting the other team. This is a whole different ballgame. Okay, in these cases, you're taking over as a parent. Like, hey, this is unacceptable, and it's not about your attitude, your effort, your scoring, but this is about like you've really done something badly, and so even then. You got to be careful with emotions. You got to calm things down. You don't want to do that with emotions. Maybe you want to wait a few minutes, but you need to deal with it and then move on. Okay, this is something. It doesn't happen very often, but if your kid does something really, really bad in the game, obviously I want to address that. Okay, and I'll tell you, the vast majority of moms and dads that I talk to, they make the ride home miserable, and they don't do it on purpose. They're not trying to do it. They're not the crazy parents in the stands. They're quiet. They don't scream at the referees. They don't loudly, they're not yelling at the coaches. They don't berate their children. They're not terrible parents in the stands. They're really good parents in the stands. They're really encouraging. They're really quiet. You would never see that. They're very well intentioned. But when they get in the car, all of a sudden, just the words that come out aren't great. Okay, so just be really careful about your words after the game, even if you're a great parent during the game. Okay, and my number one advice for that car ride home or post game is to listen and not talk. Okay. Now, for any coaches listening, if you are a coach, tune into here. I want to talk to you for a minute. If you are coaching a team, I don't care what age they are, I want to give you some post-game talk advice from my 22 years of coaching. And I've been doing post-game talks for 22 years now. And so I want to give you some tips. And I've made every bad post-game speech you can think of. I've ranted for 20 minutes plus. I've singled out kids. I've yelled. I've walked away in disgust. I've said things like, I have nothing to say to you guys, and I walk away. Okay, I've been an immature idiot in my career, my 22 years. It's been a long time since I've done those things, and I'm proud about that. But I have done those things in my career. Now, let's talk about how I am now. 22 years later, a little bit more mature. My post-game talks average about 2 minutes. 2 minutes max, 5 minutes at the very most. And they're 100 times better than they were 10 to 15 years ago. And I think if you ask my athletes that, they would say the same thing. And I know that the athletes appreciate that. And I know the parents and fans really appreciate that I keep my talks under 2 minutes. So here are a few things I want to talk to you to remember if you're a coach for your post-game speech. Number one, these are kids. Okay, you're the coach, you're a teacher, you're an educator, and these are kids. Think about if you're a teacher in a classroom. How would you talk to your kids? And remember, the kids are impressionable. They're real people. And if they've lost a tough game, they feel awful too. Okay, there's not too many kids that lose a game that are like happy that they lost. Okay, they're feeling pretty bad about it too, and maybe not as much as you are. Maybe you're taking it a lot more personally, but they're not happy about it too. And they may feel worse about it, especially if they're the ones who feel like they lost the game for the team. That could be it could be really bad. It's a big rivalry game. It's a big game to them. They lost. So do not ever let your emotions get the better of yourself. And I've done it many times. I've seen coaches do it. I have seen in college coaches rant for 30, 45 minutes cussing out their teams. And I'm just like, that coach is doing it for them. They're not doing it for the athletes. They're just doing it for themselves. They're unhealthy, and it's just not a good way to do it. And that's not the point of a post-game speech. The point of the post-game speech is not for you to rant and rave, get upset. That's not the point of it. And then remember, what you say, they're going to remember this for a long time. So be careful with your words. Use them wisely. Think about what you're going to say. I always really think about my post-game speech. As soon as the game's over, we go to the high five line. We've got a couple minutes before we all get together. I really kind of rehearse in my head what I'm going to say before we get to that thing. I don't just wing it most of the time. I think about what exactly I'm going to say when we get to the meeting. If you use phrases like, we absolutely suck today. We're not going to win a single game this year the way you guys are playing. We're never going to win if we do that. I'm telling you, at the next practice, the kids are going to be like, wow, coach doesn't think we're going to ever win. He thinks we suck. So, he has no faith in us. That's really sad. So, it's going to be hard for me to get buy-in from my athletes to work hard at the next practice if the last thing I said to them before that practice is, you guys suck, you're not good, we're not going to win. If you leave it like that, why would I get buy-in from my athletes at the next practice? So, stay away from anything horrible like that. And then remember this. Almost every parent asks their kid, what did the coach say after the game? It's just something that happens. A lot of parents ask their kids, what did the coach say? And, I can tell you right now, if you didn't say the right things or if you were a total jerk, that's going to go on to the parents, and then the parents are going to go to work the next day or the dinner table or anybody else, and they're gonna spread this terrible coach that they have and everything else. And now with social media and stuff like that, it's really easy to go on social media and be like, well, my kid's coach said this, this, and this, and it could be true. So everyone wants to know what the coach says after the game. Even the media. In college, they always ask us in interviews after the game, or ask the players, what did the coach say after the game? What did the coach say to you? So, and I do this with my own kids all the time. It's kind of the one question I sometimes ask, hey, what did your coach say after the game? Because we're interested in knowing what the coach thinks. And understand, coaches, sometimes you make mistakes, okay? One of the hardest things for me in my career that I learned eventually was to own my mistakes and take responsibility for them, take ownership. That's tomorrow's topic, taking ownership. But for coaches, taking ownership means if you messed up and the game was on you, you made a mistake. I can think of a game in college where I lost us a big game because I didn't do the substitution right. I wasn't paying attention somehow. I forgot to re-enter this person, and we ended up losing the game because of it. And I apologize to the team. And I can tell you right now, if you accept responsibility for that, you made a mistake, you own it, your athletes are going to respect you a lot more. But if you lose a game and it's your fault and you didn't do something right, and then you put it back on your athletes, they're not going to respect you. Again, you're going to lose that buy-in. You're blaming everybody else, and it teaches athletes that blame is okay. So whatever the case is, and honestly, the kids know. They know in their head, oh man, coach really messed that up. Or, hey, I know this happened. If you put that blame on them, they're going to get defensive too. Like, well, it wasn't my fault, coach. You did that. And you create this thing. But if you can lead with, hey guys, in the third inning of the game, I did this. I'm really sorry. I blew it. And I messed this thing up, and I take responsibility for it, and I'm sorry. It goes a long way. So, and then I will tell you guys, less is more. Sometimes the most effective thing that you can do in a post-game talk is not say anything at all. Just say something really light. Hey guys, good effort today. Let's go home. We'll talk about it on Monday. Or hey guys, let's go get some ice cream. And it's a really short. Don't even talk about the game because maybe you don't have the right thing to say. You don't know what to say. Your emotions are really high, and so my thought always remember, keep it simple, keep it quick, and then send them on their way. And if you need to, if you're one of those parents, you're like, oh man, I've tried all these things, I still can't do it. Take a couple minutes. Say, hey guys, we'll meet in 5 minutes in the bleachers or 5 minutes in the right field, whatever you guys talk together. Take a couple minutes to calm down. Get it yourself together and do that. So I'll tell you guys, when I do a post-game speech, I try to focus on two main things, okay? I lead with, what did we do well today? And I'll ask them, hey, what did we do well today? And I'll say some things we did well. Hey, you know what? I noticed today we really did a good job of picking each other up on the bench. There was good talk in the dugout. I thought we did a really good job running the bases today. Good effort there. Hey, what do you guys think we need to work on today? Or, I noticed that, our throws in the outfield today, they weren't great. What we didn't do this very well. So we need to work on those things. On Monday, we'll work on those things. So like, what did we do well? What did we work on? Make it engaging with them. Okay. It's not just the coach talking to them. Ask them questions, engage them, make it about 2 minutes. And then remember, everything that happened in the game, we can talk about it at practice on Monday or whatever day the next practice is. We can talk about, all the things we need to talk about and coach them up in that practice versus trying to coach them up when they're tired, exhausted, not listening, and we don't need to hash it out right there in the huddle. Okay, everyone's tired, they don't want to listen. It's just not needed, so don't do it. And I can tell you guys, I've spent over 20 years as both a parent and a coach. So I can tell you firsthand how many kids I've seen quit because of their parents. And I can tell you how many others have told me how great their parents were, how supportive they were, and the car rides weren't terrible, and their parents didn't grill them. Remember that study with the hundreds of college students at the very beginning of this that said their number one worst thing in all of their career was a ride home with their parents? These same college athletes were asked what their parents said that made them feel great. That amplified their joy during the game and after the game and the car ride home. And their number one response was, well, my parents said, I love to watch you play. So next time your kid gets off the field and gets into the car, just try it. Just once or twice or maybe more. Just say, hey, buddy, I love to watch you play, and see what happens. Maybe throw in a, hey, want to get some ice cream? Or what do we want for dinner tonight? And save the lecture for another day. I promise you will not regret it. I love to watch you play.